Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am your host, Sonja. Hope everyone's having the most amazing day. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, and we are live tonight. Hope everyone is doing great, no matter where you are. Thank you so much, and welcome into the new subscribers on YouTube. Also, to all of my followers on all the socials Facebook, TikTok, Insta, and X. I hope everyone's doing great. And I have a special guest tonight. But before we get to that, let me give a special shout out to the production team of Brian Art and Pink Fan Fur. They are the dynamic duo who create reels and all my promos, all the behind the scenes features you guys see going on. I'm extremely appreciative to them. And definitely have a great show on the horizon. Now, I'm going to reintroduce to some and introduce for the first time to many my very special guest on tonight. She is a second leading scorer in program history for LaSalle University. 40 goals as a soccer player, top 5 point total with 40 goals and 21 assists. She rostered in the first Sky Blue scrimmage before heading back to school to finish classes. Played on the FC Bucks Vipers semi-pro team in the WPSL the summer of 2011 and 2012. She is a just genuine person through and through. She actually is on a lot. This girl, let me tell you, this lady, I should say, because she's definitely what they say, such a lady. She has been on Fox Sports. She right now actually has she's a storyteller, inspirational. She's been a sideline reporter on Fox Sports, ESPN, NBC Sports, WNBA coverage, NBA coverage, NFL coverage, the Washington football team, now the Commanders coverage as well. She's a professional speaker, MC, and host, sharing stories and lessons on leadership, resilience, mental health, and personal growth with TED style talks, global conferences, and schools around the world. You guys can literally catch her on Front Office Sports right now. She is none other than Philadelphia's own diehard Eagles and Lakers fan. My friend, welcome back to the stage, Renee Washington. Renee, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I thank you for the kind introduction. I really appreciate that because you're also doing phenomenal things. So, always a pleasure to have a chance to join you and talk with you. And for everybody that's tuned in, I apologize in advance. I didn't have a voice, but it's coming back. So, we're here. It was not going to stop me from joining up with my girl Sonja and being able to talk some sports. So, yes, I'm good.
And I'm so glad that, listen, it's so weird because it was like, okay, she's not feeling good, but she looks amazing. And, that's what we do. And while I'm at it, shout out to my girl, Katrina Harris. She's actually dog sitting my first son, and she's the lady behind hair and makeup for tonight. So thank you so much, Betty.
Oh, I noticed.
Yes, gave
Come
me the
on, the
straight
face is
look.
beat, the hair. Yes. You know what? I was gonna say something because you came in ready and I'm like, dang, you could have let me know so I could have been a little more prepared. But
Renee, I'm trying
she
to be.
slayed your makeup.
Thank you, thank you. I'm trying to be prepared. I have to be on greatness level here. So I wanted to meet you where you
Oh,
already are. So
thank you.
honored to have you. We only have limited time. This hour goes by super fast. So I want to get right to it, Renee. The Olympics, big Winter Olympics just wrapped up here. I know you were heavily involved in some coverage there. What were your initial thoughts on that? We saw some, ups and downs, some injuries that we did not expect. Just a little bit of, your thoughts and just some of the things you actually covered and capitalized on what was going on behind the scenes during the Olympics.
Yeah, so something that's really cool is I had the opportunity to work with NBC Sports around the Winter Olympics trials for curling. So mixed doubles, men's and women's curling, their trial events that they had out in South Dakota and out in Colorado, and to be the broadcaster, the play-by-play broadcaster for that of who was going to represent Team USA. Now I am newer to the curling community, so I did not get the opportunity to go actually and be a part of the Winter Olympics coverage itself. I was
Mhm.
leading up to the actual events. And so for me, this was my first taste of being a part of the Winter Olympics in any capacity. The trials and getting a chance to see all the teams that had fought so hard to qualify for that event and then to see who was going to be the ultimate winner. it just made this year's curling events that much more special for me, that selfishly I was like, I saw these teams in the trenches trying to fight to
Yes.
represent Team USA. And I know a lot of people were using their Swiffers and their brooms in their houses pretending they were curling. It is an incredible sport. And so I'm so happy that I had a chance to, see them then go on. The mixed doubles team of Team Corey, TC, and Dropkin, they finished, they medaled. The women's and men's teams did really well. Also, it was like a historic run for them, but we saw a lot of history in the Olympics. So I always like to say, although there's going to be drama and injuries and like a Lindsey Vonn injury, that I'm still devastated about her
Yes.
trying to come back after tearing her ACL a week prior to the first event and then blowing out her leg, unfortunately, on the slopes. And as she was someone that had retired and unretired. So these are the types of stories you hear, and it's just phenomenal to see. There's all different ages that at the Winter Olympics compete, all different events, all different, moments. Hockey, though, my last shout out, Sonja, has to be for the men's and women's hockey teams that beat Canada in their respective gold medalist games to win for the first time ever that we had both win a gold medal in the same year. So a phenomenal all around, everything was great.
It was really great. And, Norway continues to dominate amongst the Winter Olympics. Whereas Italy celebrated most successful games ever. There were 18 golds for Norway, 41 total. They set a new record for golds. The USA, which is our main interest here, 12 gold medals, 33 total. And that actually had us the most successful Winter Games for Team USA in terms of gold medals. And then in the third position, the Netherlands had 10 golds and 20 total. And then, as I already mentioned, Italy, that double cauldron in historic first two Olympic cauldrons were simultaneously Milan and one in Cortina d'Ampezzo, the opening ceremony titled Armonia, the hockey sweep, Renee. The United States pulled off dramatic double gold in ice hockey. And like you talked about, the men's team defeated Canada 2-1, in a thrilling overtime final, securing their first goal since the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Now, I was here in 1980. I was a very, very young kid, but 1980, I was here. And the U.S. women also defeated Canada in overtime to claim their title.
Yeah. So what makes these even better, in addition to the, as you mentioned, the record-setting 50 years since the men's team last won a gold medal, there was a very tragic story for anybody that's been closely connected to the hockey world with the Gaudreau brothers, Johnny and Matthew, who are actually Jersey natives
Yes.
that passed away in a car accident a year ago.
Yes.
And, to see the fact that, I'm sorry, that would have been 2024 now at this point. Time flies by.
Yeah.
To see the fact that they were supposed to be with Team USA. I know Team USA had their kids on the ice and their jerseys, and it just felt like one of those pinch me moments. I still get chills thinking about it, that the very next Winter Olympics, the US men's national team wins gold after one of the biggest tragedies that rocked the sport and the country, because they were just so young and it didn't feel real. It was devastating.
Yes.
One of them was expecting a child. They had young kids in
Yes.
general, like just so many things. And it was, to me, one of those big moments when you look at why international events like the Olympics, the World Cup, they're bigger than sports. They're so much bigger than sports. And so I think this was that reminder that this is something that, beyond the incredible 2-1 overtime win over Canada, beyond the incredible run of the success of the men and the women, and they kept rooting each other on the entire time, that you also had this special moment that we all had a chance to kind of feel like the angels, it was bigger. It was bigger than hockey in that moment. So I think it was like we had the Miracle on Ice, we had those special moments 50 years ago, and here was history being made in a whole different way. And I'm just so thankful that I had a chance to witness and be a part of it, because these are the special moments I do not take for granted in being a part of sports coverage and being a part of just the sports landscape in so many ways.
Absolutely. And hello, Paul. Thanks for joining us as always. Great to see you. Renee, you literally touched right on what I was saying. Hello, Pink Fanfare, the lady behind the reels. Thank you for joining and supporting as always, Pink. You hit it right on the head. It was so, and you read my mind because I was leading right into that next. that storyline, and you're right, time does fly. I remember hearing that tragic story, and I was just thinking to myself, those two brothers were close in every sense of the way, and to both be professional athletes, the bond was surreal to know that one would go on without the other, at least in this life. And so when I saw the games, and especially when they went back over the highlights, I was like, there was no doubt in my mind that there was an angelic presence that was with, him. Like, hey, I know that my guardian angel is going to get this done. And it's almost to the point of going overtime. It made it even more noticeable because it's like, hey, keep going no matter what. And I am with you. And so to see, this team and to still even feel like you said, just thinking about it, I am, feeling very emotional about that right now because I just remember when I first read that, I just was heartbroken and just the manner it happened. It's always sad when anyone expires, but just the situation around it and the youth, like you said, one, he was about to be a dad and, just coming off of the biggest moments, if I'm not mistaken, they were not far removed from a wedding of some sort. Their
Correct.
sisters was getting married.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's
Ugh.
just that's what was even more heartbreaking because as I remember the details, I was just thinking there's such a thin line between the highs and lows of life. Like you could be euphoric and within a split second, it's the complete opposite. And so, of course, we all watching as fans and just as humans continue to send well wishes and prayers and, condolences and comfort because I know that had to be extremely emotional, but an extremely proud moment for him as well because he knew that he still achieved what they would have achieved together. So, definitely the big behind the scenes, but so in the front. It's like it was behind the scenes, but it was so for those of us who knew it was right there in the front. It was front and center. It was kind of like, how is this gonna go? And then we saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's where for me, you look at all the different components of, there were some political things that happened and some other things that were negative that took
Mhm.
away from the joys of the moment. But to me, I try to keep it this is about the athletes. They
Mhm.
train for years to have this opportunity. They train, once you qualify, there's been the process of the you don't just qualify and now you sit back and wait until the games happen. There's so much that these athletes have to pour into, and so to have such a devastating story for Johnny and for Matthew, again, you're so young, they're my age, and so that hit even
Oh.
when I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wow, that's a very when it actually takes me to like a Kobe Bryant and Gigi Bryant, the accident, like these moments that regardless who you're a fan of, regardless, even if you're not even a hockey fan, period, these are the moments that remind us, A, athletes are also human, and B, they're not immune to any tragedy or anything like that. So just more reason to enjoy these moments, celebrate these moments. And to your point about even just like the success of the various countries, one of the things that I do enjoy about the Winter Olympics in comparison to like the Summer Olympics, obviously an entirely different slate of events. So some of these events, like we don't even know about them in the United States. I was having
Mhm.
conversation about some of the various bobsledding events and skiing events and the different winter events because another country that maybe has more snow, more winter, the facilities for it, even a sport like curling. Curling is
Yeah.
big in the United States, but it's even bigger outside of the United States. So I also love when you get not only the introduction to who these athletes are, their stories, but you also get to see how each country values their respect, the different individual sports, what they kind of focus on a little bit more. And just that pride of, your country being represented and these athletes getting to represent your country and learning about them is it makes it so much more special. So it has me excited because we've got the World Cup coming up for soccer. I know I've been working with FIFA around that for some different content, but these international events, people, you have to tune in, make time while you're working. Maybe it's popped up on your phone, on the computer, whatever, because these are such historic moments that we don't get all the time.
Now, I'm going to ask you, Renee, are you coming to Atlanta for the World Cup?
Well, right now, I don't know my exact World Cup slate. Of course, with I'm in the Jersey area, and with Philly and New York being host cities, I definitely am looking to be there. But if somebody wants to have me in Atlanta and fly me down, please, by all means, don't twist my arm. I'll be there. But no, I think for me, for me, it's exciting because I've been able to work with FIFA specifically around hosting some of their content and shows that are giving people the behind the scenes of the history of, specifically for Philly, but the history, the culture, the sports landscape, but soccer specifically. So I'm thrilled because there's so many events, even if you're unable to get tickets, because the ticket process has been insane and
Mhm.
expensive, especially for like elimination games. I encourage people, go to a watch party, go out to that local bar or restaurant, like go watch the game of the people, because there are going to be so many phenomenal events around FIFA in the respective communities, but
Mhm.
especially even beyond that, that are going to create these activations and must be at events for people. So I don't know where I'm going to be yet. I'm actually having conversations to finalize it, but I know I'll be somewhere having fun, watching the games, enjoying all the matches, the tailgating, the vibes, the culture. It's gonna be fantastic.
I had to ask because I'm here in Atlanta, and
Of
Atlanta's going
course.
to host 5 group stage matches and 3 knockout rounds for the FIFA. So, we are one of the host cities, and so I was like, "Well, is Renee coming to my city? I will have to grab lunch with her."
See. We will see.
Mercedes Benz. So I know we'll talk offline about that. Feel free to be like, "Girl, I'm coming." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, definitely." So yeah, so that's of course the big story for the summer there. But another thing, the Winter Paralympics. I always really honor and love how we always recognize the wheelchair curling mixture doubles that occurred. Just today, honestly, history was made as the first ever Paralympic champions in this discipline were crowned. The gold went to China. Wang Mings and Yang Yinkyo defeated South Korea 9-7 in a tense match that went to an extra end. That was just today, Renee. And the bronze went to Latvia, won its first ever Winter Paralympic medal in any sport, defeating the USA, sadly, 11-10 in another extra end thriller. So they're still ongoing with the Paralympics, which kicked off March 6th and it will end on the 15th. So just a few more days here. Semifinals going on March 13th, and the gold medal game is on March 14th.
Yeah, and I think that's something for people. Oftentimes they'll say, "Oh, the Winter Olympics are over," and yes, they are, but it's the start of the Paralympics, and
Mm-hmm.
there are some insanely incredible athletes for what they're able
Yes.
to do. With whatever it is they're physically limited
Mm-hmm.
around in terms of maybe being in a wheelchair, or whatever. But make no mistake about it, this is. I watched actually some of the curling Paralympics as well, since they were happening during the mixed. Sorry, during the Winter Olympics trials that I was broadcasting, so I had a chance to see them in person because they were on a sheet beside us, and so as I was watching, I'm like, wow, they're doing things that I have never seen before. Like it's just they're so talented. They're so able to use their own skills and abilities to be able to do things that like I know I could never even attempt to try.
Yes.
So I do think people sleep on the Paralympics a little bit, but there are some really phenomenal games because they are different, and much like I was mentioning about learning about new um, sports and things, like the Paralympics opens your eyes to even newer things that you did not recognize existed, of like how they're having their respective events, how they're competing. It's different rules. There's some tweaks and changes to some of the different events that makes them unique in themselves. So I love being able to learn about all of that because there's so much to unpack. I mean, we didn't even get into there's things like ice skating, and there's so many different events, so many different
Yes.
sports, and so many different styles to them from the Winter Olympics, and then they changed completely as well with the Paralympics. So these are those moments that like every 4 years doesn't feel like enough because it is really cool.
The ice skating is always a favorite of mine. It's been that
Oh
way
yeah.
since I was a child. I'm always before I even move to that. the Paralympics, you're right. Their upper body strength in those wheelchairs, I'm just like, is amazing. It's literally a mental and a physical attribute to be able to be that mentally tough. Imagine the training. They always say when you lose one sense or one limb or whatever, that you get stronger elsewhere. And I just know from like having a couple of surgeries and being limited 2 or 3 months, like with a limb or whatever, not being able to use it. I literally was in a wheelchair, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is such a humbling experience, because imagine if this is how I was the rest of my life. And I got a chance to see how people treat people that are in those positions. I actually went to a game,
Mm-hmm.
Renee. I went to 2 games. One, I was in a wheelchair. The second game, I was on a knee scooter. I had been upgraded. But I remember going to a Bears game, Bears versus Panthers in Chicago at Soldier Field, and we were redirected to the wrong area. And so the person pushing me we missed the entire first half because they were pushing me around the entire stadium. It was inclines and everything. It was so bad. I remember trying to use my left foot to just help because my right foot was in a cast. I just remember trying to, help because I felt so bad. And it was just horrible. And then I went to a Panthers game in Charlotte, and I had a knee scooter, and I remember just no one moves out of your way. You're having to, constantly ring the bells. So as these Paralympics are training, as they are existing, there's a certain level of respect I personally gained because I know how, just in the little time that I was limited, how I felt society overlooked or dismissed or just did not placate, or try to make exceptions for. And these Paralympics don't want that. That's what they use to build their strength, because they're like, hey, I don't want anything given to me. I don't want any sympathy. I want to work twice as hard now, because if I work twice as hard in my mind and in my body, I've more than proved that I am beyond worthy of this. And that makes them even more above average than your average human.
And I think the biggest part, first of all, I'm sorry that even happened to you, but I think the biggest part, even as you're sharing your experiences, is to show that representation. Because there are so many people that, have their own various adversities and challenges and limitations, whether it's physical or others, that through international events like the Olympics, it shows that representation. It's motivational. You think about, like, I looked at whether it's the Paralympics and just those phenomenal athletes showing their abilities and how they're not defined by any physical disabilities they may have, or when you even hear the stories of some of the different athletes, they're not in their 20s, in their quote unquote athletic prime. There were
Yeah.
athletes that were medaling that they had, their children were there with them. They were in their 40s, or even some I saw in their early 50s that were competing. And the stories around these athletes, and that's before you even get to the countries they're representing. You listed off the various countries that have, won the most medals, but there are a lot of countries, sometimes it's their first Olympics, whether it's winter,
Mhm.
summer, World Cup, whatever, their first time qualifying, their first time winning a medal. That is what I think people sometimes lose sight of with these international events. It is a chance to have that representation. I have said it earlier too, that pride of being
Mhm.
able to show what your country's about, wearing your colors, wearing your flags. And in a world where we have all these different languages and skin tones and things that may sometimes divide us, it's a way that it brings us together and makes it bigger than anything else. Forget politics or whatever else is going on in the world. It is a chance for people to just come together and compete, and I love seeing those moments of the first. I was just like, as the Olympics was rolling on, just seeing more and more of those like news stories and feel good stories of
Yes.
50-year-old so and so, medals for the first time, or whatever the stories may have been. So it is such a remarkable thing because, to your point about the Paralympics, the Olympics as a whole, Paralympics and Olympics, do such a great job of bringing you in to those
Mhm.
stories and moments and the authenticity of those raw, vulnerable moments. There was a figure skater that lost his parents and was still skating, like was skating for the first time, competing for the first, like those types of stories. It's just wow, it again, it brings chills to me when I see those things happen.
Yeah, I like how you said that, Renee, because it kind of like, I don't know. I'm sure with you being on the professional scene and reporting all the time, sometimes you'll probably have, a script that you all are going to talk about, but then you'll have ideas in your mind like, you know what? That would be so amazing to add to this because I just know that's going to bless someone. That's going to help someone. And so for people that are coming in, you'll notice the name change. It's still Prim and Proper Sports, but I just launched the legal score as of last week because, as everyone knows, I'm on my law school journey, and then score. You score for law, and you also score in sports, and so it gives me an opportunity to talk offline a little bit. When I say offline, even though we're online, talk offline a little bit, like a little segue for things that are not necessarily directed to NFL, MLB, NBA, CFP. It could be, hey, by the way, I think this will bless this person, so let me add this in. And it's been really advantageous. And by the way, I want to thank everybody because they have been extremely supportive. We've had over 5,900 views since this started last week on the platform. So I want to thank you all for that. But Renee, I'm gonna close this segment out with saying this. I am extremely impressed that they not only are, thank you so much, Paul. We'll see you soon. That they are embracing not for that, but I'm 51. I just turned 51. And so a lot of times people are like, of course, younger people now are just more kind, but I'm just sitting here thinking, all right, when I was 30, did I have a friend that was 50? No, because my dad was like 50. I was in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s. My dad was 50. I didn't have a 50-year-old friend, but this 50 is not our parents' 50. We are living longer. We're taking better care of ourselves. Not that they didn't, but we just learned how to just keep it moving, push water, push electrolytes, and just mentally take care of ourselves. Mental health is so important. And I know that's a platform that you stand on, Renee. That's one of your pillars that you literally teach in your TED Talks. And we'll give you an opportunity to talk about that probably the last 3 or 4 minutes before we close out, because I do want people to be able to connect with you and be inspired and continue, outside of sports, just know that the whole person, that Renee is a holy person that's taking care outside of the sports. The sport is just an avenue for us to reach people. But when you use who you are within, that's the true connection. And so, Renee, I want to thank you for that. We're going to take a pause here, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in about 1 minute, 30 seconds after this commercial break. Be right back. That time goes by so fast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second segment. I was on there trying to share some of the streams because I forgot to share those. So welcome into our second half. I'm joined by the lovely Renee Washington from Front Office Sports, ESPN. She's everywhere in the Philly area. Glamorous face and a beautiful personality and spirit to match. Renee, welcome back to our second half. We just wrapped up with our segment on the Olympics and Paralympics. And I do want to give you an opportunity to have some closing thoughts on that segment before we segue into our next segment. I know I closed out real quick, but I did want to give you an opportunity to speak on that segment and about what we talked about. Having the opportunity to reach others and the platform that you have is so very vital.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I think the biggest thing that I always stress, and this is actually what drew me to want to be a sports broadcaster in the first place, is that sports truly are a platform. I'm a former athlete myself, as you mentioned in the open, and I've had a chance, through my career to be a Hall of Famer, to be a three-time All-American, to have a chance to pursue a professional career. And through that, I saw not only the gaps that were missing in sports for athletes, but the gaps and the opportunities, I should say, even that sports can transcend beyond what's happening on the pitch or on the scoreboard. And so I always said, like, for me, my mission in working in sports broadcasting was to be able to use my platform, to be able to provide a voice for the voiceless, to be able to connect through sports. Because regardless who you're a fan of, I'm an Eagles fan, I'm a LeBron and Lakers fan, I'm actually also a Sixers fan, so it's conflicting. But regardless who you're a fan of, at the end of the day, we can trash talk, we can cheer and watch a game together, but it's just sports. And I think it unites people in such a way, whether you are fans or rivals, that is very unique. And I know you
Mhm.
touched on it earlier, but that is why I've actively been so big in my season right now of going all in to pursue and do more, I should say, in the space of professional speaking, because I love all the game broadcasts I do. I love the shows that I've been able to host. I love that I've been able to work with so many different networks, but it's bigger than me. It truly is. And I want to ensure that what I'm doing has meaning and value, especially to continue to move the conversation. And so I love the opportunities, whether it's a TED Talk or I was just on a panel prior to this, being a part of events as a keynote speaker and hosting them, whatever it may be, to help be able to share some of my experiences and stories. So I think as we're wrapping up our Winter Olympics talk, that's a prime example. Way bigger than how many gold medals were won and how many records were shattered. Those are very important too, don't get me wrong. But it's
Yeah.
also about the stories, the representation, the pride, the community, the way it brings people together, the way that we can celebrate together or even mourn together when you look at stories like Johnny and Matthew for
Mhm.
hockey. So sports are bigger. Sports have always been bigger. It's music, it's politics, it's culture, it's fashion, it's legal. It does cross over into so many different
Mhm.
avenues. And it's time, I know for myself, I've been embracing that and using that as a way to open the door for more messages and speaking engagements and things like that.
Absolutely. And what's up, J Train? My colleague and friend and brother from Friday with the Fellas got a big birthday coming up tomorrow. So happy early birthday to him. And he'll be on with us Friday, the 13th. But Renee, you are absolutely right. And I don't know if it's just for me, but it sounds like it's for you as well. They say with age comes wisdom. And I literally every day when I get up and I meditate and I pray and I journal and I thank God, like, okay, thank you, God, for the growth, for the wisdom, for giving me time and space to repair those things I need to repair, and for me to make the connections with people I'm supposed to make the connections with. Because I really do think everything in life is a puzzle. We all are part of one huge puzzle. That's how I look at it. And I tell everyone, God has a plan. I'm just here to execute it. And if I remember that, and there's been some really difficult days, and I'm sure they are with anybody who's put their hand and mind to something that they just are not 1000% sure they can do. I just remember that. And then I'm always like, this is not for me. I wanted to be an attorney when I was a teenager. And even though I wouldn't recommend going to law school as far out as I am, I'm glad I didn't go in as early as I did, if that makes sense, because I don't think I would have had the sincere appreciation that I have now, having seen some things in life, having experienced some things in life, and having realized, okay, as a teenager, it's like, okay, I want to be a lawyer because it sounds like a great career. People respect you, you know. And like then of course you get all the nice things in life, all the material things, the cars, the clothes, the houses, it's just all amazing. And now I'm just like, those things are nice. Yeah, that's fine, but that's not my purpose. I'm going into civil rights and public defense. I'm going in for social justice reform. Those are the things I'm standing on because there is nothing like having an incident close to home that literally rocks you to the core that you have to change that. And I've experienced that. And so to know firsthand and see firsthand how people close to me and in a close circle or what have you have dealt with things changed my entire perspective. So whenever things get really difficult, no matter what it is, even if it's not necessarily educational related, even if it's just, hey, you got to keep going. I know you're having a bad day, but you got to keep going because someone out there is really looking to you for inspiration. And so when you look at it like that and you remove the I out of it, you just remember to keep it moving for someone else. And so I am so grateful that you and I were connected through Mac, God rest his soul, and that we've continued our connection because it's a reason. There's no coincidences. I believe that even things that happen to people in a negative perspective still have played a part. Like, people are here for a season and a reason. There's still things that you can learn and to help someone else. And so you have to look at it like that. And like J Train says, thank you. Definitely at 51, wisdom has presented itself during the past 5 decades. Jeez, I'm thankful though. Yeah, J Train. Well, welcome. He literally we're the same age for like just a few weeks, and then I turned my age, and then he has his the next month. But Renee, it does happen. And it is so pleasant to see that you still in your youth are already of the mindset of connecting, building, restoring, and incorporating in any platform that you're given. And that's what it's all about. So I want to thank you. I know we kind of got a little segue there, but I was like, I don't want to miss this moment because I know that your moment being here is just too big for me not to appreciate fully.
I appreciate that so much. And honestly, I think that is probably one of the biggest differences. I know you touched on earlier, like today's 50 is not what it used to be. I
Yeah.
look at like my parents who are grandparents, and I'm like, whoa, y'all are totally different than how my grandparents were when I was a kid.
Yes.
I the running joke is like the show The Golden Girls. They were in their like 50s and 60s,
Wow.
but they looked like they were like 90 in their 90s
Yes.
because it's just like a whole different time. You think of grandmoms and aging as a certain look, and there are
Yes.
some queens and kings out here that are not aging. My parents are an example. They're aging in reverse. They're getting younger. They're more active. They're traveling. They're living their best lives. But I think a big reason why that generation started to change, and then we're continuing to change, is we are understanding life truly is so short. Like you
Mhm.
talk about being in your 50s. I'm like, I feel like I blinked and I'm here. It feels like just
Yes.
yesterday I was in college, just yesterday I was in high school. It's been over a decade for me
Yeah.
since I've been out. And so I think because of that, we're understanding the value of balance, self-care. Even my parents, I will say they weren't great at it, but they were better, definitely better than theirs. Of understanding, like, you have PTO for a reason, use it.
Yes.
You have you have mental health facility resources and things, use them. If you're sick, it's okay to call out. You don't have to
Yeah.
work yourself. It used to be work until you died. Now
Yeah.
you can work and then retire and
Yes.
then enjoy being retired. So we're changing the game. And I think a big part of that for me is no longer feeling prisoner to things that don't align with me. So
Mhm.
to be honest, like front office sports, I actually made the decision. This is very recent, so it's okay that you don't know. But I left front office sports a couple of months ago. And yeah, I know it's fine because
I've been
it wasn't
following
because of
all the
change.
reels, girl.
No, it's fine. I'm not there anymore. I've been gone since like November. But I didn't make a public stink about it because it doesn't need to be a big like
Yeah.
announcement. Part of the reason why was because I was being presented opportunities to work with FIFA, to work with NBC Sports, to do other things, and I wasn't able to do them with FOS.
Mhm.
And it was a tough decision, but I felt a calling that there was more for me to do than just being in this office Monday to Friday hosting a daily show.
Mhm.
And I think that's another reason when we talk about why we're aging differently is because we're no longer allowing stressful situations to make us feel like we don't have options. If there's something that's better for us, whether it is going to get your law degree, whatever it may be, it's something that you feel pulled to, called to, that you think will actually make you happier in a sense of more fulfilled, feel aligns with more purpose in your life. Like we're going after it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at in my season right now. That's why I said earlier, like I've been doing more speaking engagements. That's something I wasn't able to do before. Working full time in a job within any network doesn't give you that ability. But
Yes.
now I'm able to do the things I want to do. I have a book that I'm publishing. I'm at more
Yay.
events. I'm at more, just doing more things aligned with who I am versus allowing society to continue to push us into what we are supposed to be doing and where we're supposed to be. No. That's why we're not seeing people get married as quickly, have kids
Mhm.
as quickly, buy the house, whatever it is, like all those societal expectations, throw them out the window. People are doing what's best for them. And there's nothing good there's nothing like wrong with the
Mhm.
traditional quote unquote route, but we're not playing by the book. We're
Mhm.
writing our own scripts at this point. And I think that is something that's so empowering that just takes a whole load of stress off our shoulders that like I'm not just I don't personally I know I'm a great example. My parents be like, oh, like I rent versus buy. Well, when are you gonna buy a house? When I'm ready. Like I'm not rushing
Yeah.
to buy a house just because I'm in my 30s and I'm supposed to. Like we're not just following. It's expensive out here, first of all. That's a whole other issue.
Ugh.
But I think we're just prioritizing ourselves. And that's a massive difference that's allowing us to age
Mhm.
better.
That's
That's what
funny
I'm
you
saying.
say that. Yes, that's funny you say that because I literally just started saying, and J Train says, congrats on all your success. Super proud of you, Renee. I literally, and I feel like I have to plug this and then I'm going to pick your brain because my time is ticking here. But this is how we do, girl. We have to have an offline conversation too so we keep up because I did not know about FOS. And it's because I
Okay.
buried my head in the books and I just have not paid attention like I should, because it's just so overwhelming with school. And then once I got a break, I just left for Cabo. And so, but I am the same way. I literally just had a conversation like, okay, these are the things I have accomplished, but why? When I'm gone, it will not matter. It will not matter if I have a mortgage or if I don't. It will, like, my whole family's out of state anyway. They'll probably just sell what I have, and that'll be that. And so it doesn't matter. So I was like, you know what? Why not just go ahead and buy another house and just buy the brand new house so that I can live in a house that no one's ever lived in and just work it out from there? Because at least I know I'll be happy. That'll be something that I said I deserved, at some point. And it just shows you there's no standards. And I was like, man, I wish, they always say write your plans in pencil so God and life can erase them. And I'm like, yeah, I live by the eraser creed. So now I'm no longer doing that. Anyone that is detrimental to me, God bless you. I'm no longer running people down to figure out why or what happened. It's just like, God bless you. I'll see you when I see you. I'm no longer running down situations. When I started law school, I had to make the hard decision of not working, and I did not plan that way. I wanted to continue to work where I was, and I wanted to be able to have the maturation on the job where I already was because it was in a field I was going to be going back to. And I was not fortunate enough to have the support of a specific person who was now in charge of more stuff than they originally were when I started with the office because the main official had retired. So I wasn't afforded that. And I was like, for a while it bothered me. Then I was like, you know what? It's okay because it literally is true. And I've seen it where one door closes, several more will open, not just another, but several. I mean, it'll be like a revolving door open with no revolve. And so I live by that creed, Renee, and I'm glad to know that you do that. Speaking of doors closing and opening, this is the perfect segue. We have about 14 minutes because I want to give you the last couple to talk about what you do, Renee. Just a shock here. Today, of course, marking the official start of the 2026 NFL League year. At 4 o'clock today, the legal tampering period has officially ended, even though we've been seeing stuff go around all week long with different contracts, executions of trades. The big story, though, Renee, that was the domino effect of this entire week was the Max Crosby trade from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens, only to not successfully pass their physical, I guess you could just say physical or health inspection or whatever they want to call it, health inspection like it's meat. But they couldn't pass the health requirements. He's back with Las Vegas, and then they turn around and sign Trey Hendrickson, and it's just been a domino effect the entire week. First of all, how shocked were you that this occurred? First of all, how shocked were you that Max was traded? Now we know we've seen some up and down little hiccups with him not being that happy with the Raiders for a little bit. How shocked were you starting from that point? and then moving that he was traded, and then you can add in the other parts.
Sure, sure. So first, I had heard rumors. Max Crosby is one of those names. When you look across the league, there are a few different talents as well that are a really good player on a really bad team. And the Raiders they're always in rebuild mode. They've been trying to figure out their head coach. They've been trying to figure out quarterback. They've been trying to figure everything out. So Max Crosby, we think last year he signed a historic deal to stay with the Raiders, but you're on a bad team. So it's like, do you value the money or do you value being a part of a team that's at least in playoff contention? So it was no surprise when the Raiders had a rough year this year that he was someone to keep an eye on. I know rumors had him potentially linked to like the Dallas Cowboys and some other teams. And the Ravens, what makes it even crazier, to be honest, is I didn't really hear as much about the Ravens. And then Baltimore swooped in out of nowhere to steal him. And the difference was they were able to supply 2 first-round draft picks, whereas apparently the Cowboys were only willing to provide 1. And so the Raiders wanted the extra first-round draft pick. So that additional draft pick is what made that trade go through. Now, if we remember, Max Crosby during the season was at a tough crossroads of like, they were clearly done. They were clearly not doing anything, postseason wise. And his meniscus was an issue. And it was, do you stop playing games and go get your meniscus taken care of? Or do you try to finish out the season? And Max Crosby waited until January. I don't remember the exact month of when he could have gotten it, but I believe it was a little bit sooner. But anyways, in January, when he got his meniscus repaired, apparently this is why he failed his physical. The Ravens training staff didn't find that the knee was where it should be, essentially. Like he didn't pass because they showed that there were some medical concerns around his recovery from his surgery on his meniscus. And that makes sense because you don't want a player that you're going to bring in. We've seen this all the time. You bring them in and they're recovering from an injury and they're unable to play. And now you've made this massive trade and he's not even ready to play for you this season. So he's not the only available big name out there, which is why I think it does make sense. All trades and deals are pending physicals.
Mm-hmm.
They're never complete. And on top of that, they couldn't actually be official until today anyways, because today, March 11th, marked the official start where it was the change of kind of the new year. So this is the new year for football where like now any moves that are happening are considered 2026, 2027 season moves. So that makes sense to me. It wasn't official. It's just annoying because of the social media world we're in. All these deals are getting announced Monday, Tuesday, Sunday even, but they're not official yet. So truth be told, any team could back out of a deal before Wednesday, before they actually put ink on paper. And I think it makes sense, but I did hear reports about like now people are questioning the Ravens even because, this does take away from your credibility if a team's negotiating with you to know that you might pull out of a deal and not honor and go through with that. So now Max Crosby goes back to the Raiders. Like, thank goodness nothing was said toxic or anything like that with the trade deal. That's why players usually wait a beat, before they send that little post or whatever. But then I think for them to be able to swoop in and still grab Trey Hendrickson, who's similarly to Max Crosby, also he very vocally wanted out of Cincinnati. He was top in the NFL 2 seasons ago in tackles. He's got all these incredible accolades. He has his name, but another player, very good on a bad team, and another player, unlike Max Crosby, though, that did not get paid last offseason. Mm-hmm. I remember he was in a holdout. They were trying to undercut what he was requesting for his contract. So it actually, to me, Baltimore was just kind of lurking around these players that are unhappy. And I think it makes sense to go get someone like Trey Hendrickson instead, who, coming in at least is healthy. We never know what the future is going to hold, but he's not coming off of a surgery like Max Crosby is. And the Ravens just kept moving along. But I think, to me, the bigger concern is like all this that Baltimore's doing. I know they just restructured Lamar Jackson's contract as well to free up some cap space. Are you actually going to see Baltimore get any better? We're going to have a new coach. You're going to have all these changes. But, like, are you actually providing the changes that you need, or is this just small moves?
Yeah, I mean, and then Max put that video up, Renee. We saw him shooting hoops. I don't remember the timetable for after the meniscus surgery. He was out there basically shooting hoops at home. Basically saying, even if it was right before the surgery, it still was supposed to be when he was supposedly injured. So that's what where the bad, bad blood kind of came from. But like you said, there was no bad thing already. But J Train brings up a good point where the Raiders too hasty to make moves in clearing the $30 million prior to the new year, because people are saying, that they should be investigated, because today was the official day, Renee. And we've seen this before. Teams uh, get in trouble for tampering. And I'm going to be honest, before the show, I literally forgot that today was the first day because, like you said, thanks to social media, people have been talking about this stuff Sunday. So I was just sitting there like, wait a minute. Why is all this news happening? I don't think this is today, but I never got a chance to go around and, check the specific date until we got ready to do the show. And I'm like, wow, like, how do you say that wasn't pre-tampering if they're not out there putting it out there? Like, somebody has to be speaking on this. It's not the players. Um, and so it's just, thank you, Jermaine. It's just really weird, the dynamic, like what can be discussed, what cannot be discussed. I know we're running here real quick, but I do want to talk about your Eagles. Cornerback Tariq Woolen was a significant bolster to your secondary. The Eagles signed him, the former Seattle Seahawks world champions, stand out for a 1-year deal worth $15 million. He expected to start on the boundary, allowing Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean to play in more flexible roles. And your defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, locked down the anchor with 3 years, $78 million extension, $65 million guaranteed. It's going to keep him, the former first-round pick you guys grabbed, through 2029. Your tight end, Johnny Muntz, to fill in a void for the blocking game. And you guys added him for a 1-year contract. And then your tight end, Grant Calcaterra, re-signed today on a 1-year deal, like to maintain depth behind Dallas Goedert. But there were some notable departures, Renee. Nakobe Dean being one of the bigger ones. A linebacker, former Georgia star, heading west, signing a 3-year deal with the Raiders. We talked about them with Max Crosby, so he's going to be joining him. The safety, Reed Blankenship, definitely a fan favorite for you guys. Team captain, in fact, he's going to be going with the Texans. And then your wide receiver, Jahan Dotson, he's staying in the NFC, but he's moving to the Atlanta Falcons to join their new quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, from the Miami Dolphins, which makes me think that Penix is probably on his way out, since Kirk Cousins has been given permission to be released and possibly heading back to Minnesota or wherever else. And your edge, Jalen Phillips, officially signed with my Panthers on a massive $120 million contract for the edge position in Carolina. So what's next for Howie Roseman? AJ Brown, we've seen him up and down the entire time. Rumors are still swirling about him. He was supposedly entertained for trading offers. And then Trent McDuffie, the blockbuster move that goes down with him, is reportedly cooling the market for a potential veteran swap. Just a lot going on in Philadelphia. Renee, what can you tell me?
Yeah. This is part of what free agency period brings, because there are a lot of names out there that are free agents, and a guy like Reed Blankenship or even Nakobe Dean, like, we knew they probably weren't coming back to Philly. Nothing so far has surprised me for the Eagles move specifically, but in general, nothing. I don't think I've had a single move that I've seen around the NFL that surprised me. Like the Falcons, Michael Penix Jr., who was injured last season, and you had Kirk Cousins, who, to be honest, isn't ready to step in to be a starter for many games as a backup. You needed a better quarterback room. So you bring in Tua, who was clearly not a good fit with Miami anymore, as they've been clearing out a lot of guys. I know the Colts had an opportunity to re-sign with Daniel Jones. Like, all these moves that we're seeing, to me, are the necessary moves. Because, A, with free agency, you can't wait. And that's why, forget a Wednesday timeline. Like, people, the moment you can start having conversations with agents, they're having these conversations. The tampering rules, whatever people want to say, again, throw those out the window also, because you can't wait. If you wait for a Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby or, even Tariq Woolen, whoever else, Kenneth Walker III might be the only one that kind of surprised me, but I'm not surprised. He was going to be a free agent. We knew that going into the Super Bowl, And to be honest, him winning Super Bowl MVP just increased his stock when he became a free agent. And it comes down to, can teams afford to keep their guys? And I had this conversation around the DJ Moore news of his trade from Chicago. I
To
had this
Buffalo.
conversation around,
Mhm.
yeah, I had this conversation around Kenneth Walker III. Teams can't afford to pay these players once they reach a certain threshold. They have, unfortunately, with cap space and things like that, you have to make tough decisions. Do you want to have that one big name and then fill in the pieces with some 1 year contracts here and there? Maybe. I don't think there's such thing as a bad 1 year deal. So a guy like Tariq Woolen being signed to the Eagles, like, take a chance on him. He's not going to be a first option. You know, he's going to add some depth to the position and give some versatility. The Eagles have been wanting that anyways in terms of different roles, their secondary, their D-line in general. They've been wanting some versatility of different, defensive fronts and defensive looks they can bring. So I think it just adds to the system. I don't think he's someone that's going to come in and now suddenly the Eagles are even better. I think he's just going to be a role piece. So to be honest, the move was kind of like, cool. But I do think for me now, this is kind of like the preliminaries, like those names, as I mentioned, that we knew were going to be free agents. Once free agency period opens up, people are chomping at the bit to have the biggest bid. That's why Max Crosby's
Mhm.
deal originally with Dallas got outbid. The moment some numbers start hitting the table and agents can go to these teams and say, hey, this team offered me this, what are you going to do to beat that offer? Now moves are getting done before we even have an official pen to paper. So this is normal. The ones we have to keep an eye on is this next phase. Like, I'm right now kind of like, okay, cool. You're tying up loose ends, you're
Mhm.
filling in some pieces. It's this next phase, like the AJ Browns of the world that we've been hearing rumors about getting moved. And I would love to keep AJ Brown, to be honest. I'm a fan. I think that the coaching, this is a whole hour's conversation in itself. The coaching lost the locker room as a whole.
Yeah.
It's not just AJ Brown, but the difference is AJ Brown's not that guy that's going to sit back quietly and be politically correct. Like a Jalen Hurts, a Saquon Barkley, they are going to be just as irritated if you were to ask them behind, in privacy, out the spotlight, but they're never going to voice that publicly. So I think that's the only difference why we see so much from AJ Brown, and he's not going to bite his tongue. He's earned that. He's a veteran. He's proven, and he knows his value and his worth. And the difference is he's going to tell you exactly what he's feeling. But nonetheless, I've heard the Patriots and different teams. Everybody wants to. Everybody's name's been in the hat for AJ Brown. So that's the tier of names, because you know what? We have to keep an eye on Sonja. In about a month, not even, the NFL draft is coming up. And that is the time teams make the tough decision. Do I want to trade up in the draft and try to get that young player There's a lot of talent coming out of college. Do I need a Jeremiah Love at running back or whoever else? Or do I want to trade my draft picks and try to get this, the guy that's already been in the league for X amount of years that's a little bit more solidified? So I think that's when it really picks up. Those the stretch right going into the draft and even around the draft of teams maybe moving some pieces to get a bit more aggressive. So far, aside from Kenneth Walker III, which I knew he was leaving to go somewhere, I just was hoping, I was upset to see it was the Chiefs of all teams. But I think the next wave of moves are really going to have people like, what? Like head explosion. So it's about to get crazy.
I
This is just the
I could
beginning.
absolutely. And as we say goodbye to our McGrath podcasting network, they had to jump off at 10 because we're going to go over just a couple of minutes here because I do want to plug in Renee Washington, everybody that we're still here with. That is really big. We had a question. I think you addressed it about the Tariq Woolen signing. Seeing that he was, up and down in Seattle. And then Pink mentioned the Panthers. Now, you guys have given us Jalen Phillips. We're excited about him. He's going to be the premier pass rusher to solve their team's sacks problems. We also got Devin Lloyd from the Jaguars. John Michie III rejoins Bryce Young from the Jets. He's the Alabama standout, and they reunited there. Kenny Pickett was a shock for me from your Eagles, the backup quarterback. The last I heard of Kenny, I thought he was still in Pittsburgh. I totally missed that he was in Philadelphia.
And he left us too. He was with
Yeah.
Cleveland, and he was with the Raiders, I think it
Yeah.
was. He's been all over.
Yeah, so now he's with us, and then we got Luke Fortner from the Jaguars and Stone Forsythe from the Raiders. It looks like the Raiders are cleaning house for real. But Renee, it's been a lot of big names. I mean, you guys have cleaned out a lot of people. I guess this, even though you guys are only like a year or two removed from the Super Bowl, it just lets you know that it's not a high tolerance for not being the best. Like it's literally like, what have you done for me lately? And it's like, okay, no, we won the Super Bowl 2-3 seasons ago. Like, that's very recent. How can you just go through and just pull the chair out from everybody and start from scratch? But like you said, and I've actually heard this even as recent as over a year ago with another Eagles guest that was on here, the Philly sports guy. There's been some issues, in the locker room. We've seen it as non-Eagle fans. We've seen the disappointment on the sidelines that looked apparent from, Jalen all the way down, the frustration. No one wants to lose a game, but it just seems like the cohesiveness just was not what we once saw. There was not the epitome of brotherly love amongst the team. No pun intended there.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, kind of like Kenneth Walker the third with the Seahawks is a great example. Like, people always assume because a team, not all people, but some people assume because a team wins a championship, they're going to just be able to run it back with the same team, and that rarely happens. The moment you win a Super Bowl or even get to a Super Bowl, you're losing coordinators, you're losing you have guys that are now like, again, Kenneth Walker is a great example, but Reed Blankenship also in that same boat, Cooper DeJean in that same boat. Their value goes up. So you were getting away with paying them rookie contract or whatever smaller contract. And now that you win a Super Bowl, and Coop is a great example because he was fantastic with his pick six and his birthday. And,
Mm-hmm.
people were talking about him so much more that he had so much attention on him. Guess what that means? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Now
Mm-hmm.
his agent can go drive his value and contract talks up higher. So, regardless of who the team is, very few teams, unless you're like the Dodgers in baseball, very few teams can find a way to afford to pay players after they win a title because you're not going to be able to afford to keep everyone. So that's why guys like Reek Woolen, you take a chance on that maybe we can get, if he's not our top option and he's second or third string, we can use him more sparingly. Maybe we can get enough out of him that it makes the deal worth it. You're trying to kind of tinker with that middle of the lineup to figure out those pieces because you're going to have to pay your top guys a bag. And
Mm-hmm.
with the way the NFL contracts are and the salaries cap and everything, they're very, very, again, unlike baseball, which they just have a monopoly money of how teams can work around salary caps and things, but there's none truly. Football is very, very strict on meeting those cap numbers. So beyond even locker room issues, you just can't afford people. And then on top of that, like as I mentioned before, what people lose sight of is everything with the Eagles absolutely started with the coaching staff. There have been comments that have come out even since the coordinator changes around the way that Nick Sirianni's been running this group and favoritism and politics to certain coaches and listening to some more than others, and the players got wind of that because they obviously see it. And so that stuff absolutely is toxic and trickles down from there. And that's literally what's led to what we saw play out publicly was a result of everything that was going on behind the scenes. That's why I said with AJ Brown, he just wasn't going to sit and quietly take it. There was frustration
Mm-hmm.
because there were schemes and play calling and things being done that was undermining other coordinators, other coaches, the players, and favoritism towards Nick Sirianni's buddies. And Kevin Patullo, for example, that's one of his guys that he was trying to, for whatever reason, listening to more than anybody else. So I'm hoping that, with the coaching changes and, all the different restructuring we're seeing with the staff, like hopefully that will help change the culture, but it doesn't happen overnight. That stuff takes time. So overall, I'm not panicking at the end of the day because the Eagles they still have their core. They lost a ton of guys after winning the Super Bowl, and they're going to lose and have already lost a few so far. So that's how sports work. That's why dynasties are so special that teams can run it back because you do not have the same team. So we are seeing some quarterbacks or players that might restructure their contract. Like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson just did, restructuring their contracts. Patrick Mahomes just did it, trying to find a way to say, hey, you know what? I'll take a pay cut so you can keep my teammates here. But the reality is it requires some sacrifice from someone to keep a Super Bowl type of a team. So we'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, and we're seeing that effect with Kansas City right now. Isaiah Pacheco going to the Lions was really big. And so I don't know. Travis Kelce's supposed to come back for a year. We'll see that. Renee, I'm super appreciative of your time tonight. Tell everyone how to find you and a little bit about yourself and other things that you offer, just so people can connect with you offline, because I'm about to let you get back to drinking that tea and all that good stuff so you can take good care of yourself.
Yes, the medicine is running out. I apologize, folks. I didn't even have a voice, so I'm glad we are able to make this happen. But I am everywhere as it says on the screen, but Renee P. Washington on all things social media. On X, I'm just Renee P. Wash. And then in terms of, I have a website, reneepwashington.com, where you can see all the different things that I do. I am a sports broadcaster, but I'm so much more than just that. I also do a number of speaking engagements. So keynote speaking, emceeing, just being able to moderate panels and host and be a part of events to provide, as I mentioned before, a voice for the voiceless, to provide, opportunities to use my platform to help teach others and extend the olive branch. And I do a number of workshops as well, whether they're one-on-one workshops or group workshops, just a lot in this space. That's actually what my master's is in, educational leadership, but a lot in the space of pouring into others and taking things that I've been able to learn and experience to pay it forward. And so again, reneepwashington.com is where you can check all that out. And also feel free to shoot me a message at any time. I always, for the most part, try to get back, especially within a timely manner. But I definitely appreciate you so much for having me on, because much like you, we're out here crossing over sports into other things and other topics, and speaking on for myself things like mental health and balance and diversity and adversity and challenges, and just different components of utilizing my sports experiences towards helping people understand navigating life, because life be lifing. And so I'm trying to help as best as I can.
Yes. Absolutely, Renee. And you do such an amazing job at it. I admire you. I admire your work ethic. You are, like I said, just as beautiful on the inside as you are outside. And so I'm super appreciative that even in this season of not feeling 100%, make sure you get some rest and recover yourself and take care of yourself. I'll be checking on you offline. Thank you so much for coming on and joining me. And please know that you have an open invitation. It won't be as long as it was last time. I think you haven't been on here in like almost 2 years.
Oh, wow. It must have been that long. Yeah, so thank you again for having me.
Yes, absolutely. We were supposed to connect it last year, but we had a bunch of stuff with our scheduling. So, and it happens. And so hopefully, we'll get you back on here again soon, especially after all these trades have settled and the season has started and what have you. So thank you so much for your time tonight. And hope you have a great evening. Renee Washington, everyone. Connect with her or send me a message and I'll relay it to her.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one, guys.
You too. Thank you, Renee. Good night. All right, guys. So that was Renee Washington joining us. Thank you so much again, Renee, for joining us. Amazing opportunity to always have her on. And just to know that she wasn't feeling 100%. And I didn't know that until we literally got on stage tonight. Going to cover a little bit more news here. I know we're a little past the hour, but there's so much happening. And my production team told me this is the last show of the night, so I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, even though I did tell the McGrath Podcast Network good night. So my bad, guys. If you're watching on all the other networks, I'm still here. Y'all, it's been a really busy week, and it's almost difficult to plug all this in. Of course, the Trey Hendrickson news was the big news that he is now an edge rusher, 4 years, $112 million, $60 million guaranteed with the Ravens. Daniel Jones, y'all, the quarterback with the Colts, 2 years, $88 million. They actually re-signed him. It was kind of rumored that he may not be signed. Romeo Doubs, the wide receiver, is with the Patriots now, 4 years, $70 million. A 3 years, $60 million has gone to Boye Mafe from the edge with the Bengals. Isaiah Pacheco, that was a shocker for me, out of Kansas City. Now with the Detroit Lions, the big news running back, multi-year contract replacing David Montgomery. You guys know Monty left last week. And acquired via trade from the Cowboys was Osa Odigbuya. I hope I said that right. Odigbuya, defensive tackle for the 49ers. The 49ers also have got Tampa Bay's own, and that's going to be a big thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and plug that in right now. Mike Evans, y'all. 12 seasons with Tampa Bay, 11 consecutive seasons of 1,000 plus yards performance. Trading one Bay for the other. Tampa Bay to 49ers, San Francisco, the Bay Area. This is big news, guys, because he said it was not personal. There wasn't one thing specifically that happened, but he just wanted to go to a team that he felt like was going to be playoff contenders and possible champions while he still has it in him. And to me, as a Panthers fan, y'all, we've seen the downward spiral of Tampa Bay last season. I just did not put into that they were just going to continue to be a downward spiral. Those guys played pretty solid. I mean, they had some bad games within the division, but I don't know if I was just ready to say that Mike Evans could kind of voice that he didn't think that team was going to be where he needed to be with his talents. Mike Evans signed a 3-year, $60.4 million contract with the San Francisco 49ers. And just absolutely big. Tua Tagovailoa from the Miami Dolphins has gone to the Atlanta Falcons, which, like Renee and I kind of discussed a little bit, I don't know what Atlanta's doing. They hired Kevin Stefanski, coach for the Cleveland Browns, who had one game less wins than Raheem Morris did in Atlanta. The Dolphins released Tua earlier this week, cleared waivers, and officially signed with Atlanta on today. Because the Dolphins are on the hook for $54 million guaranteed salary this year for Tua, the Falcons basically got him for pocket change, especially because they just finished paying off Kirk Cousins. His first year deal, he's only going to be getting $1.3 million. And I say only because he's a player. This is a veteran minimum. They literally got him for the minimum amount of money that the NFL requires that veterans be paid. Since the Dolphins are paying the bulk of his salary, Tua is going to count for almost nothing against the Atlanta salary cap, allowing them to remain aggressive in their free agency. Michael Penix Jr., this injury that he had, and you guys could go back in my vaults. When Atlanta drafted Michael Penix Jr., at the draft, they literally called Kirk Cousins at the draft. Like, hey, guess what, Kirk? You may not be our starter. We're going to go ahead and call up Michael Penix Jr. You know, Kirk's just like, okay, I'll root at my family, but, you know, we're here. Fans got disgusted by Kirk Cousins' performance, and they wanted to see Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr. signed from the time he came in, had injuries to all 4 quadrants of his body. He's had all these procedures and everything, and I talked about that extensively. And I was like, what is Atlanta doing? Why would they draft a quarterback who's already documented as being injured on a regular basis? And people, you know, had little comments. They were comebacks and comments. They were like, well, he wasn't injured the last season of his college year, his senior year. Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. Well, he didn't even last a full season with the Atlanta Falcons before he went down. This time, ACL tear suffered last November. We are in March, y'all. I think they said the expected recovery for ACL is about 18 months. So they're saying he's on track for August, which will still not be 18 months. But Tua is going to be basically their starter. Watch what I tell you. Because I don't think that Michael Penix Jr. is going to be ready for week 1. Of course, Kirk Cousins was officially released as of today, with June 1st being his actual designation day. 2 years in Atlanta and a whole lot of money and a whole lot of drama around him, and he's done. Um, they're thinking that Tua is going to bring a quick game offensive scheme to the Falcons, and I just don't know. Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver, signed a 2-year, $17 million deal to give Tua or Penix a reliable vertical threat. The team did bring back a 1-year deal on wide receiver Olamide Zaccheaus and tight end. And then the defensive actually added defensive end Cameron Thomas and Chris Williams. The salary cap guys went up to $301.2 million this year. It was aggressively high. I feel like every season they are getting a chance to bring more and more people up. The offense of the New Orleans Saints has been stacked. They brought in a lot of people. Let me go to my little notes over here. They brought in a lot of people, guys. Of course, Tyler Shuck's still going to be there front and center, but they got Etienne on that lot now with their offensive line. And you have to kind of look around and think, okay, these teams are making a lot of moves early on, and what does that look like overall? So you first look at it like this. It started off with a lot of different teams. Alvin Kamara was supposedly courted to other teams, and he said, no, I want to be a Saint, and that's all I want to be, and that's all I'm planning on being, and so that's where I am going to stay. So when you look at that, you are literally thinking, just like what people were thinking as the season was wrapping up last season, that the Saints may be for real. Kenneth Walker III is projected to go to the Kansas City Chiefs as well. That's going to be big if he goes. Tyler Lindenbaum is projected to go to the Raiders. Malik Willis is projected to go to the Dolphins. Michael Pittman Jr. On slate to go to the Steelers. It's just a lot. Travis Etienne Jr., one of the Saints' big offensive people, and it goes on and on and on. So, this is early in the season, not the real season, but it's early in the season nonetheless, because this is a busy time of year. You get a chance to see who's moving, and as they say, who's moving who. Stone Forsythe plans to sign with the Carolina Panthers, free agent offensive tackle. He was drafted by Seattle and has been with the league 5 years, and he's last played with the Raiders. Raiders are definitely cleaning house. And so when you look at the Raiders, the Eagles, they have been doing like the most stuff this off season. Let's see. We got the Cowboys have agreed to safety Jalen Thompson, formerly of the Arizona Cardinals. He's supposed to be getting a 3-year deal, $36 million max deal done by Don Wetherell and Martin Fishman of Cut Sports. They are, I guess, his agents or what have you. Tyler Lindenbaum going to the Raiders from Baltimore is just almost like Renee was saying. Baltimore is cleaning house, and the Raiders seem like they're cleaning house. Now, here's the top remaining free agents as of right now. Rasheed Walker, the offensive tackle, Chig Okonkwo, tight end. Some of these people have been signed as of today and may have been signed since I started airing, so I don't know. Nashawn Wright, cornerback, K'Levion Chason, defensive end, Elijah Vera Tucker, Chris Paul, Kyler Murray, y'all. He still has not been signed after being released from the Cards. Taylor Decker, Braden Smith, Calvin Austin III, Deebo Samuel. I haven't heard anything about him. Wide receiver, Jawan Jennings, Wyatt Teller, Jaquan Brisker, Caden Ellis, Leo Chenal, Dallas Goedert is a tight end, is still a free agent at this moment, and Rashad White, the running back. So a lot of people are going to be making moves between the next couple of days to get these people situated. Quay Walker is no longer with the Green Bay Packers. It's just been, like I said, a very busy day. We could go on and on and on for another hour, but what we will do is hopefully some of these names have been solidified by the time our Friday show rolls around, and I will be joining you guys with Friday with the fellas. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your comment. He says Dan Morgan and Dave Canales decide. Yes, I got you. Signing him to a big deal and bringing him to Carolinas, and definitely saying about the Super Bowls. Got you. Yes, Jeffrey, always great to see you as well. And with that, we will join everybody on Friday, 9 p.m. sharp for Friday with the fellas. By the way, make sure you guys stay tuned on this platform. Shows all around from McGrath Podcast Network. With that, I will bid you guys all a good night.